Greetings car fanatics, the Porsche 997 comes with 3 mufflers. Today I'll be getting rid of the center muffler by installing a Billy Boat center muffler bypass. Overall, this is going to be a fairly straightforward install. You only need basic tools. Let's take a look at the tools you'll be needing. Starting from the left, you want to have some penetrating oil to help you remove the muffler bolts. This 13mm swivel wrench is going to help you remove one of the bolts on the catalytic converter. You also need a 6mm Allen wrench. You also need a 13mm deep socket, a ratchet, and some gloves to protect your hands. Before you start working on your exhaust system, the first thing you want to do is spray all the mounting hardware with penetrating oil. Because of the high heat generated by the exhaust system, this really accelerates corrosion of the bolts, and if you're not careful, you could end up stripping a bolt or snapping one. So now we're ready to start removing the center muffler. The center muffler is held onto the catalytic converters on each side via 3 13mm bolts. For the very top bolt holding the center muffler to the catalytic converter, you want to use your swivel wrench to help you get access to it. For my car, I don't have a bolt to remove at the top of the flange because I broke that bolt last time I was messing with my exhaust system. Later in the video, after we remove the center muffler, I'll show you the process I use to get rid of that stuck bolt. Let's take a look at one of the bolts. This bolt has been on my car for about 2 years, and look at that corrosion. After you're done removing the bolts that hold the center muffler to the catalytic converters, you want to loosen the bolts on the exhaust sleeves that connect the side mufflers to the center muffler. Afterwards, you can remove the 6mm Allen bolts on the exhaust clamps that keep the center muffler secured to the car. Now we're almost ready to pull out the center muffler, but before we do that, we have to disconnect the center muffler from the side mufflers, and we're going to do that by sliding over the exhaust sleeves that connect the two over towards the center muffler. With all the hardware securing the center muffler in place off, we can go ahead and start pulling the center muffler out carefully. Alright, so after about an hour's work, we have the center muffler off. You want to take off the exhaust sleeves because you're going to be reusing this to connect the center muffler bypass to your side mufflers. You can also reuse your exhaust flanges. These are solid pieces of copper, so reusing them should be okay. So before we put the new center muffler bypass on, remember that broken stud I told you about? Well, unfortunately, it's time for me to drill this out. Before I do that, I want to spray the bolt with penetrating oil. This will act as a lubricant for my drilling and cutting. I'm then using a tungsten carbide bit on a Dremel to cut off as much of the bolt as I can. Before I start drilling with a larger drill bit, I'm going to take the Dremel and try to bore out as much of the bolt as I can. This is going to make it much quicker for me to drill out the bolt. So after 20 minutes of careful work, I was able to remove the bolt. What a pain in the ass. Alright, so it's time to install the new center muffler bypass. We want to start by raising the center bypass and aligning everything. I'm trying to use a strap here to get it to the right height. It's kind of not working, but fortunately my toolbox fits almost perfectly and raises the center muffler bypass to the correct height. When connecting your center muffler bypass to the catalytic converters and the side mufflers, you don't want to tighten anything just yet. You want to get all of your bolts in the right place before tightening everything down, just so you have a little bit of wiggle room to line up all the holes. Alright, so I finally have the center bypass bolted up. I removed the exhaust tips to help give me ease of access to some of the bolts. Now I just have to put them back on. Alright, now we're ready to hear how the 997 sounds with the new center muffler bypass, but before we do that, let's go ahead and take a look at a before clip of my car with just the Gundo Hack mufflers. Alright, let's see how my 997 with the Gundo Hack and the center muffler bypass sounds. On initial startup, you'll see that it's pretty loud, but it'll get quieter once the engine warms up. Now let's rev up the engine and see how the exhaust sounds. Well, there you have it, car fanatics. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Leave any questions or comments below.